I'm me. Just feeling myself. Hola, bienvenidos. Welcome back to my channel, guys. If you are new, my name is Alatorre. Join the family and hit that subscribe button. Today, I am going to be showing you guys not only how to get this Foxy eye look that I feel like has just been everywhere lately, thanks to Alexa Demi. I feel like she kind of started it. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but homegirl is just so fire. She's so hot, and she has like these, her eyes always are giving you like that sexy bedroom eyes, like everyone's like, Melissa, please stop. I wanted to try and do the Foxy eye look tutorial for you guys, but also really focus on showing you how to layer your makeup if you're doing eyes first. I know about a week ago, 2 weeks ago, I did a video on how to layer your makeup products, starting with foundation first. This time it's eyes first. So many things change when you do your eyes first. You guys will notice there's so many other little steps, and I'm actually technically doing brows first. So I'm gonna highlight that in today's video while doing this Foxy eye look. So let's get into it. Enough talking. We wanna see the look. I'm gonna start by still priming the eyes first with NARS Skin Total Replenishing Eye Cream. The best. If you guys have not tried it on your eyes before concealer or any makeup, it's just so good. So good. I'm hoping my camera cooperates today and actually focuses on my eyes. I'm telling you guys, the struggle of filming yourself every time you get a new setup is so difficult. So I'm hoping it doesn't go. I was watching my last video and it goes in and out, and I'm so sorry. I see the comments that say like, it makes me dizzy, but I can't help it. I don't know how to make it just stay on my face. Now, if you are a brow first person, having eye cream on there or even foundation is going to cause your eye pencil to not go on to its full potential. It's gonna slip and slide everywhere. So what you wanna do is take a bit of translucent powder. I'm using the Perfect Setting Powder from Cover FX. And you're just gonna lightly dust over the brow area so that you can fill in your brows without it moving around. So I'm gonna grab a little light fluffy brush. I'm using this LH306 brush, tapping it into the powder. And I'm literally gonna sweep it onto the actual brow hair. I feel like people nowadays, from what I've seen as a TikTok hack, are doing powder first and then foundation, so it should work. I've done this before. I actually learned this trick from Laura Arellano, I believe is her last name, the owner of Melt Cosmetics. I attended her masterclass and she powdered the brows down first and then did brows first and then so on, and it really does help. So I'm gonna just fill them in now, very lightly. You guys know I don't really heavily fill in my brows, but for today, I'm gonna go back to a pencil. I'm using the NARS Brow Perfector in the shade Naya. I love using a long-wearing foundation as my eyeshadow base, so I'm gonna show you guys another little trick. I've shown it before. If you like using an eyeshadow primer, this is a way to get your eyeshadow to then blend into your foundation afterwards or look really natural, you know, on the outer edge. I'm gonna be using this Hourglass Veil Eye Primer first. I'm gonna layer it on with my fingertip, and then I'm gonna go in over top of that with the Makeup Forever Reboot foundation. This is not long wearing, so it's a little more, it's prone to creasing, especially on the eyelids. So together, you're gonna get that long wearing effect and still keep it looking blended and natural when you do the rest of your face. And I really try to only concentrate the eyeshadow primer where it's gonna crease. So right there on the fold, and not really so much like globbing it on. I'm not trying to go on with a really heavy, thick layer. And for this, you definitely want an eyeshadow primer like this Hourglass one where it's really thin and lightweight. You don't want anything super heavy if you're gonna layer a foundation over it, because then it will look heavy at the end. But see how light this is and sheer? Now I can layer on my foundation on top, but if you did fill in your brows and some of the products, see how it looks a little fuzzy right there? I'm gonna use a concealer brush to not necessarily carve it out, but just clean it up so it doesn't look fuzzy, because I'm still gonna end up brushing my brow hairs up, so it's gonna cover that anyway. It's not gonna look like a carved out brow, but I still wanna clean it up. And then since I'm already using the brush, I'm just gonna go ahead and layer it on top. And also, you wanna be able to blend out your eyeshadow in this inner corner and then not mess it up when you apply your foundation after. So I always like to make sure I get this inner corner really good. I'm gonna take that same translucent powder by Cover FX and just lightly dust it in this area. So like brow bone, anything before the lid. So that way when I blend the eyeshadow, it blends out really easily, especially out here in this inner corner. And I'm just using that same brush I used on my brows earlier. And you don't have to set up here, just under here, because you're still gonna have to do your face. So you don't really wanna set the foundation on the outer edges because it might start to cake up once you add more foundation. So just right here, don't worry about this part up here yet. Now let me run you guys through this Foxy eye look real quick. I'm gonna use this brand new palette from Melt Cosmetics. They make some of the most pigmented eyeshadows I've ever tried. This is the new Rust palette, I believe it's called. Rust. I'm gonna start by using a transition shade to kind of lay out that foxy eye, if you will. So I'm gonna use this shade Rubbish, which is actually one of my all-time favorite shades from them. I believe this used to come in a stack. They made these like magnetic stack eyeshadows that came with like 4 or 5 shadows, and I'm pretty sure Rubbish was one of them, and I would use it all the time. But today it's gonna be the transition shade, so I'm gonna use that to carve out the eye shape, and I'm using a Smith 247 brush. So see how I'm following the outline, but then instead of going down, I'm going up. That is going to create that foxy eye effect and make it really easy to then add the rest of your shadows in that direction. You're creating a wing with the eyeshadow and not with an actual eyeliner. Next, I'm going in with Mar. I want to avoid rust because I don't want it to look super orangey. I feel like the tones I've been seeing for this look are more like true brown shades. So I'm going to stick with Rubbish, Tarnish, Mar, and Rot 2.0. So with Mar, I'm gonna take a really small brush and I'm gonna further deepen up the outer edge. Start closest to the lash line and then very gently start going up to meet the outer edge of that first shadow we applied. See that? And then I'm using that same brush I was first using to apply the transition shade to just soften everything out. And then same brush, the tiny one, going in with Rot to further define that cat eye. Also work with a tiny eyeshadow amount at a time because if not, it might get too smoky, and you want to keep that wing and you don't want it to get too blended into the rest of the eyeshadow. Actually, for this one, I'm going to grab an actual eyeliner brush so it comes out a little more defined. I'm going to use this little angled brush from ColourPop, and it's okay if it doesn't look really sharp because we haven't done the face yet, so I'm going to use foundation to clean it up. The goal is to just get that cat eye on there. I was gonna give in and use an actual liquid liner, but this shadow's doing such a good job, I feel like I'm not gonna need one. And then to blend this one out, I'm actually gonna switch over to another more precise brush. This is a ColourPop E21 brush, and I'm just gonna lightly smoke because I don't wanna ruin the cat eye. So I'm kind of starting at the top and then blending down. Versus if I had used something like this, I might get carried away. So I'm just gonna lightly buff that edge so it doesn't look, see right now there's like a distinct line between this shadow and that shadow. You want to buff that out. And the last shadow I'm adding is Tarnish with just my fingertip on that lid space. And I'm going to give it one more blend before I move on to the face. Since I did the eyes first, if I have fallout, there's a little trick that I like to do versus using a makeup wipe that might compromise the wear of your makeup unless you're using something like these guys that I mentioned in a previous video, the Billy wipes. Those are actual like skincare infused wipes, so I feel comfortable leaving those on the skin. Others, I'm like, if it's meant to remove my makeup, chances are it's probably gonna affect the wear of my makeup afterwards. So I like to take my moisturizer. I'm using the NARS Skin Luminous Moisture Cream and a kabuki brush and just sort of buff out any fallout that might be on the skin. So I scooped out a little and I'm gonna reapply. So I already had this on my skin to begin with. So I'm just adding another extra layer and using that to buff out any fallout on the skin. And I find that it works really, really well. And I feel like I learned this from my NARS days with this moisturizer. And I feel like this is an evening look, so I'm gonna prime next to add a little more flawlessness to the skin. I've been dying to use this and for some reason have not used it on camera yet. It's called the Act 4 primer from Estee Lauder. It came as like a limited edition set. I hope it's still available. Or limited edition collection, but when I put it on my skin, when I was just kind of like swatching it straight out the box, I was so impressed by how soft my skin felt that I was like, I gotta try this on my face. So I'm gonna be using this as my primer. I'm just gonna go ahead and start at the center and then blend it out. I wish there was more info on the bottle. It literally just says Act 4 Estee Lauder, but the texture is very nice that it leaves on the skin. It just makes me think I'm gonna get a really smooth finish when using this primer, so I hope that's the finish I get. And then I'm gonna use that same Makeup Forever foundation, but because I applied a primer, remember I told you guys, I use primers for a very specific reason. In this case, it's for a more smooth, flawless finish. But sometimes when you go to buff in foundation into a primer, it tends to look heavy. And so whenever I use a primer, especially a smoothing primer, I like to pat it on top with a sponge. This is the OFRA sponge on a beauty blender, because I feel like it's just pressing it on top of the primer versus like mixing it in and then messing around with what the primer is supposed to do. So I'm gonna take my Reboot foundation onto the back of my hand, work it into the sponge, and then start pressing it in. The only problem with this method is that I feel like I end up using a lot of foundation to get the coverage, but anything for beauty. The foundation is a little darker, but I am gonna highlight with a lighter concealer, so it's okay. Woohoo! I feel like that primer did a really good job. I hope it's not limited edition. This is one of those items that I feel like you're gonna like love it, and then they're gonna be like, surprise bitch, it's not available anymore. So I'm hoping it's still available, or that it comes back in a different form, because I really like it as of right now. And then to clean up that Foxy eye, I'm gonna take that same concealer brush I was using in the very beginning and a little more of the foundation, and I'm just gonna do a little sweep like that. So it's a little more distinct, the cat eye. Instead of having eyeshadow that's smoked out, you want it to be a little more cut, but still slightly smoky. So afterwards, when we do the lower lash line, we'll blend it some more so it doesn't look like you cleaned it up with foundation. Next step in this routine with doing eyes first is to conceal and highlight. I'm gonna be using this Fenty Beauty, what is this concealer even called? Pro Filter Concealer shade 145. I'm gonna go to the typical areas underneath the eye. Is that too? I feel like it's too bright, but I also use the foundation that's too dark, even though you can't really tell. You'll probably be able to tell when I zoom out, but this should balance out the colors. So I'm gonna start with a small amount, and then we'll see what it looks like. And whenever I'm trying to balance out the color of my foundation, it's really important to add it to the forehead and the chin, because then it'll look balanced. If not, I feel like the forehead kind of just like looks like a way darker area than the rest of your face. I'm keeping it, the highlighting shade, mainly just underneath the eye, not even going completely underneath on the lower lash line. I still have to add shadow there, but this way it just ends up looking a little more natural, if you will. I know some people are watching and commenting like, this does not look natural. And I went in with a pinch more of 210 just to balance out the color, because it was looking a little pasty, like a little dusty, you know? Gray. And this one has a little more of that peachy undertone, so it's more brightening, if you can see. So it's right here and then on the inner corners of the nose, just because I feel like sometimes it looks better to not necessarily go super, super light. Obviously it looks really good when you're highlighting, but sometimes to correct that under eye darkness, you want something that's a little more peachy and pink. So by adding that to that inner corner, it just looks a little more alive and well versus dusty and gray. Now I'm gonna share something top secret with you guys, okay? The secret to under eyes not creasing is talc. Just kidding, not talc, but I promise you the only powder that has ever that has stopped my under eyes from creasing is the Laura Mercier translucent powder, and I don't have to pile it on. The only thing is that if you want like a talc-free powder, I'm pretty sure the Laura Mercier one has talc. Love it, still use it underneath my eyes, but if I want to stick to one powder for my entire face, so I started with the Cover FX Perfect Setting Powder today. You do have to use a little more of this powder than the Laura Mercier one in order for it to lock in those under eyes and not crease. So I do like a bit of like a baking method with all other powders that are not the Laura Mercier one, whereas with the Laura Mercier one, I could just lightly dust. So with this one, I'm gonna dip my sponge directly into the powder. Just the very tip, just the tip, I had to. And this powder does work really, really well for baking. It doesn't leave you looking super dry afterwards like other ones because it's such a lightweight powder. And then to set everything else, I'm gonna dip a kabuki brush. This is a SMASHBOX, como se llama? Full coverage foundation brush. I'm dipping it straight into the powder, dusting off the excess, and then lightly patting it into the skin, especially the nose, the laugh lines, pretty much the areas that cause a lot of creasing or end up moving or separating throughout the day, usually right here, and then whatever's left over on the forehead, because I feel like the forehead never causes me any problems. She behaves everywhere else. I'm like, get it together, please. So let me know if you guys are liking face first or skin, I mean, that's the same thing, foundation first routine or eyes first routine. I lately have been loving eyes first just because I feel like you don't have to be as careful with ruining the skin afterwards. The thing is, you do, well, there's like a negative and a positive to each one. With the eyes, I feel like you have to be a little more precise afterwards to get that nice blend, especially of the eyeshadow, and to make everything look cohesive. Whereas when you do the face first, you can kind of go ham with like the blending of the eyeshadow because the base is already done. So there's pros and cons to everything. Just curious which one you guys prefer after watching the other video. And if you guys don't know what I'm talking about, I'll link it here. I love this brush, you guys. If I could recommend any brush to you that I feel like you will use a ton of, it would be this one. I'm gonna go ahead and bronze next as my next step in the eyes first routine, and I'm gonna use this bronzer by Tom Ford. It's the Glow Bronzer in 02 Terra. This one's matte. And then I'm gonna use 01 Gold Dust on the forehead. I haven't been using highlight on the forehead. Instead, I've been using a shimmery bronzer, and I like the finish much more than highlight on the forehead. Highlight on the forehead was looking a little sweaty nowadays. For blush, I'm using this MAC So Natural Glow Play Blush, and it's kind of like a bouncy, almost like a powdery cream, so I like to use a kabuki brush for this one. It's a really interesting texture, but the finish is so beautiful. It has like a nice sheen to it, but you do have to use a little more of like a dense brush to get it on there, because if not, it does absolutely nothing. And then I'm going to use that same brush from earlier, the LH306, and just dust this under eye powder away. I'm gonna mist myself and then I want to highlight, so I'm gonna do the lower lash line next. So you want to take away all that excess powder. Makeup looks so clean today. I don't know if it was this or just the technique of doing the eyes first, but I mean just feeling myself. Using a clean little precise brush. This is an Urban Decay Smudger 203 brush. Gonna go in with Rubbish as a transition shade. I'm just very proud of this makeup look right now. Final touches, next step, setting spray. I feel like this one, oh, my hair was attached to it. I feel like this one is a good combination of a setting spray and also like a hydrating mist. It's the Tarte Maracuja Miracle Mist. So I'm gonna use this as both my refresh spray to let all the powders sink in and make my makeup look more natural, and also a setting spray, especially hit the high points of the face so that the highlighter goes on nice and glowy. And the one thing I can always warn you guys about is to always mist before mascara if you have really long lashes, because it will get really messy, or like a tinted brow gel. So I always mist and then brow gel, mascara, upper lower lashes, highlight. That's all in my final steps, and then the lip, of course. For a highlight, I'm using this Persona highlighter in the shade Zuma. I had forgotten about it. Finally cleaned out my highlighter drawer. It was a hot mess. And I forgot about how amazing this one is. So I'm gonna use this to highlight. And I'm also gonna use it as an inner corner highlight. I'm gonna mist one more time with that same Maracuja Miracle Mist to really make the highlighter pop, and then mascara, brow gel. Why did I talk while trying to speak to myself? And because I feel like Alexa Demie sort of sparked this whole trend with her MAC campaign, I'm gonna do a MAC lip minus the liner. I'm gonna do a sort of like a little darker than a nude, but the gloss might change the color. I'm not too, I mean, that is nude. I'm gonna use Anywhere Caffeine Artist Color Pencil from Makeup Forever, Yash lipstick from MAC. You guys will see it's like a little bit darker than like a typical nude. But then I'm gonna top it with this gloss, which the name is a little hard to read. I think it's Deco A Go-Go. That's the lip combo, guys. I got all dolled up for you guys just to wrap up this tutorial. This never happens. This look is just honestly giving me a vibe. Normally I'm still in a sports bra, which is what I was filming in, and sweatpants covered in makeup, but I was like, you know what, Melissa, today's the day that you're gonna get ready for this tutorial. And those are usually the tutorials that I end up loving the most, so let me know if you'd give this Foxy eye look a try. I mean, share it with anyone who you think has been trying to nail it and has yet to get this effect. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. Let me know if you did, comment down below. Don't forget to subscribe, hit that notification bell, and I will see you in the next one. Bye guys. Mwah.